Right, it's time now to see Rupert.
Rupert's Royal Roundup.
Rupert, how are you, Rupert? Good morning.
Good morning, René. Yes, I'm snowed in today. I'm looking out my window and I've got snow, and I live on a hill, so the drive out will be quite lively if I'm driving anywhere today.
Well,
so anyway, hey-ho.
Hey-ho, how are you?
Fine, thank you. I've had a great week. Mind you, the snow's given me plenty of opportunity in the bad weather to sit in front of the television and watch a certain documentary.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because I lost 3 hours of my life watching that nonsense. So shall we start with that? Your thoughts? Well, let me tell you what I thought. That first one I thought wasn't too bad. The second one made me quite angry, and by the third one I thought it was quite dull.
I thought the whole thing could have been told in about one episode of those three. It was turgid. It was beautifully done and put together. I'm not faulting the production values on it, as you would expect for the kind of money they're paying for it. It's going to have the very best level of production. But I couldn't bring myself to think, well, actually what I really thought is, why are they doing this? What is driving them to be so angry? And I actually felt that they were using things as an excuse, and suddenly the story became a very different one. Suddenly it became all about the Commonwealth and issues there, and the Britain's relationship with the Commonwealth. I thought it was supposed to be about their love story and the breakdown of their relationship with the royal family. Well, the trouble is they can't really tell that story because it's a one-sided story that they're putting out there, and that's my feeling. And then we're going to see another three episodes where will they look into all the allegations that surrounded Meghan, maybe the bullying? What are they going to do about some of those things? How are they going to talk that through? But again, we will only hear one side of the view, which, okay, when you're doing your own documentary, you control the shots. But in many ways, that's the weakness of this whole thing. And some people, mainly in America, are believing this to be the true story. Well, I think we have to accept that in this country, we know better. It is not the true story. It is their version of events.
I agree, Rupert. I thought it was extraordinary the way we'd gone from their love story, which is why I could tolerate Number One, because they were talking about their own relationship, and I thought that was fine. And then, of course, we got a lesson on the Commonwealth, and then suddenly this turned into, and for me, the most damning thing was undoing the entire life's work of the former Queen and the Commonwealth, and then calling it Empire 2.0, I thought was appalling.
That indeed, and actually I think the most embarrassing moment and the most disrespectful moment was the curtsy. I'm sorry, that just really, she knew when you're going somewhere, you know the protocols. Harry would have told her, this is what we do, we just get on with it. Yet she tried to make light of it and actually think it was wrong. And actually that is incredibly disrespectful to Harry's grandmother, our Queen. And I think that resonated with a lot of people. Using the Commonwealth, they actually worked for the Commonwealth Youth Trust for some stage, so they actually were involved in it and were happy to be part of it. So to then say that all the problems, the Commonwealth is Empire 0.20 or whatever the line was, you actually feel, well, you're just trying to make the narrative, and that's what they've had to do here, is to try and come up with news lines that actually don't really reflect what is going on. Because the Commonwealth, yes, it's an institution that lent itself out of the British Empire, but it's a very different beast now and has a very different role. And a lot of countries don't want to be part of the Commonwealth, or want to break their ties with the monarchy. Understand, and the King understands that. We're seeing that in the Caribbean. But the actual tenet of what they were saying, I think is overblown.
Well, sorry, before René comes in, the other thing that really made me angry was they equated Brexit with racism, and that obviously incensed me, as you can imagine, no doubt. And that was just a spurious allegation. They made 1 + 1 = 17, and it was also not made by Meghan and Harry. They used third-party commentators, and it was lazy journalism.
Yeah, and the Brexit, look, there are. One of the Brexit issues was the immigration from Eastern Europe. It's a very different, their slant was a very different take on the immigration issues, and it's not Brexit related. Now, you can have your view on Brexit, but whether that is it was part of the sea change of the country that the country wanted to adapt and adopt, whether universally achieved, clearly there are controversies, but the Brexit issue is a sideshow, and that's my point. They've had to try and find what they think are news angles to give it some extra level and gravitas. And that's the problem with it. It's very marshmallow deep in terms of its sort of intellectual capacity. And actually, there aren't that many people talking on it. And now we're beginning to find that there are little things that are coming out, like the relationship with Meghan's niece and about whether she should or shouldn't come to the wedding. That one said that she couldn't, and that's what we're getting. Little things coming out that the story is slanted one way, and as everyone says, the Queen's best line: recollections may vary, and that's the whole point. The recollections are very different from Harry and Meghan's perspective, and perhaps there is a somewhere in between is what actually happened, and we'll never know what the other side actually had to go through, because they won't be saying anything.
Well, on that note, Rupert, of them not saying anything, do you think it would be a pertinent time for them to release the report on Meghan's bullying allegations and let the world just judge for themselves what goes on there behind scenes? Because at the moment, Meghan's painting herself as this holier-than-thou, slightly like Diana figure, where actually there might be other parts of her that people might say, well, hang on a minute, bullying's not very nice if racism isn't very nice.
Well, exactly, and this is the problem. There are non-disclosure arrangements with the people who were investigated and said they wouldn't say anything. But if they see that if that comes out in the subsequent episodes and it's just her slant, then you could feel the frustrations of those people. If they see it as a completely different what happened, then they may want to say, look, we want to be heard, because these are serious allegations. And what she said, and I think in her podcast, she said, well, when you're a strong woman, sometimes you perhaps behave in a forthright manner. Well, we know that, the business, the world, people want things done if they're driven, but it's how you do it. And good leaders know how to get the best out of people without making them feel bullied. I mean, that is the important thing.
It is. I was interested, and we asked Caroline Faraday earlier about how it's going down in the States, and obviously that will go down in a different way to here in the United Kingdom. What I found interesting was on the IMDb, which is a rating system for all of these sort of programmes, it only gets 3.2 out of 10. So, and that kind of speaks to your point, Rupert, about it could have been told in an hour.
Yes, but they've obviously paid an absolute small fortune to get this. It was interesting that everything was recorded, but as they said at the very start, before August 2022. So that means that gives them a opt-out clause. And they did say, this is not quite the story we wanted to say, because obviously things have changed since then with the death of the Queen.
Of course.
And maybe Harry is wanting to back off. But actually, Netflix are saying, well, this is what you signed up for. You pay your money. This is going to have to deal with it. And they went through it. And presumably they signed off on it.
Just watching it, what was apparent to me is just how bitter they are as a couple. The fact is that they wanted revenge. I don't think they've realised quite the impact of this. And actually, there's a brewery, I don't know if you've seen this, there's a brewery that actually has a beer called Harry's Bitter. But I don't know if we can show you that. But and I just thought that was a brilliant pun on it. But it does smack to me that these people are so bitter, so entrenched. It's all about them. And as you rightly say, if you are going to meet the Queen, you look up the etiquette, you look up what you're going to do. And she's making a massive drama. I was very lucky. I did meet the late Queen. I went to Windsor Castle. I actually Googled what you needed to do, how you address the Queen and so on. And I would expect her to do the same.
The important thing is a lot of this is about Meghan being centre of the show, and she's, and this is the problem. And poor Harry, who at times feel, yes, he's bitter and twisted, it seems. But look, he's gone. Of course, the problems with it when his mother died and everything about that was horrendous. And no one can understand how traumatized and how much he misses his mother, just as anybody else would do. But clearly, his grief was shared by everybody. But actually, when you look at them having a lovely time in their villa in California, you wonder what have they got to complain about? This is the life they chose to lead.
Yeah.
They've got their chickens, they've got their roses, and their children are happy. Now, I would suggest that most people, as would have talked about, there are millions of people, hundreds of thousands of people worrying about, do I turn the heating today on or do I have some food? And when you see them behaving like that and their bitterness and their lifestyle, people must be questioning, why are they so angry? What has driven them to this level of anger?
So let's talk about this bitter thing, because I've now know where this pub is. It's a pub in London commemorating the fallout of the Duke and Duchess of Sussex on this Netflix documentary. This is an on-tap beer. There it is. The Duke of Sussex pub in Chiswick in West London is offering Harry's Bitter to customers. I mean, that's just priceless, but also it means that, for me, is about the mood of the nation.
Yeah, and I think, didn't the publican say that the beer was fairly weak? So I think, or there was a line, because I think it's only 3.9 or something. But so you read into that what you like. But anyway, the point being, yes, look, clearly it was a difficult goldfish bowl life, but at times he did make sure that the publicity, and he knew how to generate headlines and would help. And it's the same as Diana. Diana was she was shrewd. She was clever. She knew she had her friends within the press to make sure that she could get her story out there. So she knew the game, but clearly at that time in the 90s, it was a feeding frenzy. But it's very hard for the royal family. Yes, there are laws in this country now about what you can and can't do with the children, photographing children. It's when they go abroad, that's the big problem for them. And that's, Meghan and Harry, in America, it's a free-for-all.
Well, Sorry, I was just going to say, let me ask you one other question. Where time is tight, actually, Rupert. But in terms of security, the former head of royalty protection has warned that actually this documentary is putting the royal family security at risk. Do you think Harry and Meghan should be invited to the coronation or stay in California?
The problem is, a quick answer on that is yes, because it's his family. But what the worry is that when they come over, it will turn into a feeding frenzy or a look at Harry and Meghan. And that's the balancing act. But I'm sure Charles has always talked about he's still got the love for Harry and Meghan, will want them at his coronation.
What about if Harry came alone?
That wouldn't. If that's what the family he decides is the best for it, then yes. But it will be sad if that is the case, because then that proves. Rennie, I think it's up to the king.
Won't be allowed
it's up to the king. It's up to the king, Rennie. I think probably, because he will have the final say.
I'm not so sure.
I think, as a family, he would like all his family around. But it's a difficult one, as we're seeing. Everyone is having strip them of their titles. Well, the man who will have to do that would have to be the king. And that, I think, for him, is the position of last resort.
Well, thank you so much, Rupert. Always very good to see you. That's Rupert Bell, TalkRadio's royal correspondent.